Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of the Dink Show, a show where we unpack ideas, topics, and emerging technology and discuss how they can be applied to your life or the world. My name is Logan, and today will be a audio recording of a conversation between me and my good friend Charlie. Not only is Charlie my friend from Stanford, but he's also the founder of the Orchid Network, a professional soccer player, and an avid design thinker. Today, we will unpack topics including why Stanford is a special place, what we have learned about life from the perspective of a professional soccer player, crazy business ideas we have, and many things in between. Hope you guys enjoy the show. What's up, Charlie? Thanks for hopping on the Dinkcast. We'll
Thanks
jump
for
right
having me. It's good to be here.
in. Oh, yeah, of course. We'll jump right into it. Always start these shows with a little like warm-up activity. So I'm going to give you a handful of buzzwords, and I want you to unpack them or unpack one. Um,
All right,
so
let's hear it. What's the list? What are you throwing
first
at
one,
me?
networking, blockchain, data, decentralization, or algorithms.
Wow, talk about buzzwords. Sheesh. Um, let's unpack decentralization a bit. I feel like it's a hot topic right now, especially with crypto blowing up a bit. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I first learned about decentralization or that kind of concept and aspect in school about like 2 years ago. And I would say I'm a pretty big proponent of it. I think it is sort of the future. However, I definitely struggle with like having too much decentralization. Of like, I think it's good because it gives more power back to say the people. We would like to say, but you definitely need some sort of centralized aspect of it in order to make efficient decisions. You know, if it's too decentralized, I don't think you make any progress towards whatever you're trying to achieve.
Yeah,
So it's like, how can you have the balance between the two?
yeah. That makes me think about when I was at the Cardano Summit. There's kind of this talk about balancing centralization and decentralization, and you hear a lot of times you hear about the DeFi revolution. But there was kind of this notion: is DeFi really realistic? Is completely decentralized finance really realistic? And there was this new buzzword I heard called RealFi. So this is, you get the power of blockchain technology, but your identity is attached to the transactions that you partake in. And I think it's interesting because, there's a lot of people out there that think DeFi is the future, and I think I'm one of them. But like you said, there kind of has to be a balance between total decentralization and finding, because centralization is a good thing. The reason we like institutions is because they solve problems for us and make things easier for us. So, it's striking that balance between decentralization and centralization. And I think the future lies somewhere more leaning towards decentralization with a bit of centralization, embedded into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like you said, DeFi, like decentralized finance. So you have these projects that are happening where they're trying to automate loans or trying to create it more where people are to get loans quicker instead of having to rely on like a bank to do it for them. But like, how decentralized is that project itself? You know, there has to be a central entity controlling that amount of money and who it's kind of going towards. So it's like when you say it's decentralized finance, like how decentralized is it actually? You know,
Yeah,
but
I think the idea of it comes down to the overseeing entity that is looking at the transactions, the loans. It's no longer the centralized banks. It's now a decentralized blockchain.
true.
And there's always someone that has to, how does the blockchain operate? Someone's in charge.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot to pick through there. Another thing
yeah.
I wanted to chat about, because I think you are good at it, is networking. So how do you go about networking? Maybe what's something that you... Is there fire alarm going on? Please mute your... I'll figure
There
it
you
out.
go.
Okay. So we were talking
Anyways,
about, yeah, anyways, networking. So what do you do kind of in your daily life to network? What have you found brings success in networking, and just expand on that?
yeah, I mean, I would say I'm a relatively sociable person. So whether you want to deem it as like networking, I just love talking to people, hearing about their background, hearing about their experience, and sort of learning from it to an extent. I'm a guy that's like, I grew up youngest of six kids in my family. So there was always a lot going on, and I was always dragged along to whatever sporting event or whatever school play. And you can't always get what you want being the youngest of six. So a lot of it's just sitting there and absorbing information, seeing your brothers and sisters kind of get in trouble, absorbing that information. Oh, what can I get away with? What can I not? So I love doing that in terms of like with networking, because I feel like I mean, like, who doesn't like talking about themselves? Oh, I've done this, I've done that, I have these accomplishments, and like it's great, kind of like hearing what people have done. And I also really like to hear what, like, may sound weird, but like what their struggles were, as well. But in terms of like getting to that initial conversation, I would say putting myself in like uncomfortable situations. For example, I'm living in a new city right now. I don't know that many people. I have some friends that from my hometown and from college that are in this area. However, and I have teammates as well. However, finding out like, is there an event going on, whether it's like a real estate event or something of my interest, and just showing up to it without knowing a single person. Like, I've done that a couple times and it's uncomfortable, but the feeling that you have leaving something like that is like, wow, like I just met some cool people that I never would have. So I would say putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, meeting good people, and then, but like also doing your research of like who you want to meet.
Yeah.
Being like, hey, I'm trying to do research on marketing. For example, today I met with a fellow friend that he wasn't. I would say I'm friends with him, but I never really hung out with him or talked to him that much. He was in art grade at Stanford, and I'm trying to learn about creating content, video content. And he just graduated. He's now an actor in Hollywood, and he's produced a couple short films. So met with him today just to like kind of pick his brain about things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's a great conversation, and it's like, wow, like
Yeah.
let's stay in touch. If you're ever in
I think,
LA, or if I'm ever in LA or you're ever in Utah, like let's link up.
yeah, dude. I a lot of what you said resonates with me. It's like it's sometimes it's hard to put yourself in that uncomfortable situation to, network. But once you dive in and, ask these questions and ask people about their experiences, you end up learning a lot. And
Yeah.
one thing that this made me think of when I saw you do this firsthand is we were at Stanford. I think it was our junior year maybe, and we went to a class, and it was kind of a free for all. It was a GSB class, and people were just getting up and pitching their ideas. And I don't know if we truly belonged in the classroom. We did, because we were really interested in what was going on and we wanted to contribute. And you were like, I'm going to go up there. And I was like, are you sure? And you sent it up there and you pitched, what was it, Pressatori or what?
Dude, yeah, that was honestly one of the wildest things I've done in terms of like getting my adrenaline pumping for something so simple and easy. Yeah, we were sitting in that room and it was like, what? Yeah, pitch. It was basically you had 45 seconds to stand up, pitch your business idea in front of a like crowd of like 200 people. And I didn't like, we just showed up to listen to business ideas. And it was kind of like, dude, screw it. Like, should I go up there and pitch it? You're like, dude, you should if you want. And I was like, all right. And like, I like botched it to an extent. I held my own in terms of the pitch. But the craziest thing was like, I had people reaching out to me afterwards, emailing me. And I was like, what? Like, people are actually interested?
Yeah. Like, it wasn't the most impressive pitch, but just putting yourself in that uncomfortable situation, you got a lot out of it. And I think,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, that taught me a lot, honestly. But,
yeah, you don't have to be perfect in order for someone to see some merit to your idea. So that was cool. But that is a good bridge to the next thing I wanted to chat with you about, was just our overall Stanford experience and talking about, the classes we liked, what campus life was like, and what kind of gives Stanford's reputation. So talk about some of your favorite classes at Stanford, and let's chat about some cool experiences we had in the classroom.
Yeah, Stanford. I mean, what a place, huh? I miss it. The more I'm away from it, I'm like, wow, I definitely miss it a lot. For sure. Yeah, my favorite class, I'd say my first one, I have like top three, but my top two kind of tie into one another. And the first class was called ME 101. I guess this podcast is called Dinking. It kind of introduced us to the concept of design thinking.
ME 101 is Intro to Design Thinking, I'm pretty sure. So
no, I think it's visual thinking.
Visual thinking. But design thinking was definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, it's a big concept. You get a design thinking pin from it graduating after taking the class. But definitely my favorite part of the class was the final project of the class, which was probably like a 3-week process of basically you initially start off with creating 100. They say, think of 100 things that annoy you. And then once you have the list of 100 things that annoy you, you then narrow it down to 20. And then after 20, you narrow it down to 10. And then the 10, you do a little bit more research on the 10 that annoy you to see, hey, can I design a solution to these 10 things that annoy you? And then you do that by asking your friends, asking family, going around talking about it. And then you pick a final one. And I picked something that was like, basically, I created a lot of skateboard decks growing up. So I had a lot of skateboard decks, but not enough trucks. So I was always wanting to change decks, but I only had one pair of trucks. So it was always a process to take off the trucks, put them on a new deck. However, so I was like, I got to figure out a solution for this. It was very cool in terms of the design process of actually designing a product. However, I didn't learn as much about the kind of market research behind it until I left the class. So I designed the designed the product, had a little prototype, and I was like, all right, like this is sweet. And then I went into like, all right, are people interested in buying this thing? And then after doing that research, I was like, all right, not that many people have as many decks as me. Like basically my market was very small, so it wasn't a good opportunity to pursue, but it opened my mind to like how to go about the process of more towards like product-based ideas and product-based companies. But then my second favorite class was then Engineering 145 with Professor Easley. And that kind of allows you to go beyond the extent of just like small product ideas to bigger, more ambitious ideas. And kind of the stages from ideation to potential funding. I mean, at the end of the class, you pitch your business model / project idea. And sometimes you have more than just an idea. You have an actual, like, maybe working prototype to an actual panel of judges that are, whether they're from a VC or angel investors or advisors. So yeah, those two kind of went hand in hand in terms of like going through that. And I was like, wow, I love this, But yeah, I mean, we and you took a class. What was your favorite class? You took several of those classes with me, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't take it ME 101 with you, but I definitely enjoyed the class. A lot of cutting foam core to design things to start, but then got into that final project. My final project, what annoyed me was putting stinky soccer cleats in my bag, then opening my bag, and it just smelled bad. Yeah. So I ended up designing a product with like the sides of the bag where they could let air flow through, so you could put your cleats in there. Yeah. Similar to you, not a lot of people wanted this product because not a lot of people had the same problem as me. So the market research side was lacking, but it was fun to go through that ideation process of, hey, what annoys me? How can I fix it? And thinking of solutions. One other class that I know we took together that I really loved was with Professor Wyndham, and it was the public policy of science and technology. And that class, what I thought it did for me is it just opened up my perspective of, whoa, how does the world works? Wait, legislation kind of controls everything.
Dictates markets, huh?
Yeah, and then technology is moving so fast, and legislation isn't keeping up. So what's going to
Yeah,
happen? There's all this new technology. There's blockchain. There's
yeah.
EFI. There's all sorts of things going on. And how is the
It's
government?
outdated. Yeah,
Yeah,
the government's outdated. It can't keep up with because technology is what Moore's law. It's like it's evolving so rapid that like legislation can't keep up.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Let's. I want to bring up. So we wrote me and Chuck wrote a final paper together, and it was about using blockchain to organize American citizens' data. Very ambitious idea. But I
yeah,
think there's some merit to it. If you can have a decentralized hub of everyone's data and they can personally own it, and when someone accesses it, they get paid for it. And in theory, it could replace Social Security. It's an absolutely crazy idea, but the technology actually exists, and there's so many possibilities to the future of legislation.
yeah. So this sparked an idea in my head about we were talking about how like technology is evolving so fast and legislation can't keep up with it. I mean, as we're seeing right now, right? We have a $3.5 trillion bill that's kind of in stalemate, and because you have Democrats and Republicans just fighting each other about it, and it's like, all right, if legislation itself is outdated, is the process about which we go about passing legislation outdated as well? If you think about that, like that's a crazy concept.
Is the two-party system outdated?
Yeah, I mean, you just saw Andrew Yang come out that like he's going to create a new party system. Like he's not going to, or he's not even not going to create a new party system, but he's detaching from the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent of Andrew Yang. I think he's a forward thinker. He's young. He's been around the tech sector, and I think we need someone like that in office who's familiar with it, because that's the way our world is going. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people in our generation kind of have the same opinion about an outdated Democrat Republican system. So who knows? Maybe
yeah,
Yang gets onto something. We'll see. We'll
yeah,
see.
it would probably be too much of a challenge though, because you're already in the system, and then the system itself isn't going to want to change. Therefore, it's never going to like evolve out of it.
Yeah.
The people that are in charge, the people that are in charge of controlling the system aren't going to want to change the system. Therefore, it will never get changed.
So here's something I heard recently is we've never had a technology where we can watch the watchers. So like there's always been the central government, but now with blockchain, you have a technology where you can put everything so it's public and it's on a decentralized system. So there should be no more secrets. So I really do think this technology is going to really change the way that the government's going to have to operate. I feel like there's just too much stuff that the public doesn't know
Yeah,
about. And
yeah, I
another
agree.
yeah, it's gonna be a crazy next.
I'll be the devil's advocate though. Should we know everything?
I don't think so, but we shouldn't open a news article and not know if it's true or not.
I mean,
And
that's a whole different topic of discussion
yeah,
there.
yeah, it is. But
Yeah,
who
no,
knows?
totally.
Yeah. So
Um,
let's talk about what makes Stanford a special place. I know you mentioned it when we were talking about what we were going to talk about, but like you live on campus all for years, and just all the different things that are different about Stanford than a typical, maybe not typical, but another school's experience. Just expand on, why is Stanford such a special place?
yeah, no. Um, I think a part of it, obviously, a lot of it has to do with its history. I mean, I was thinking about it. I think Stanford, to an extent, got pretty fortunate with its location. For once, I mean, California, phenomenal, beautiful state. The Bay Area, amazing. But I mean, talk about Silicon Valley. That just gives it itself an advantage right there. It being right off of Sand Hill. I mean, maybe some people would argue that like Sand Hill is there because of Stanford, Sand Hill Road, in terms of like all the venture capital firms right there that are supporting all the innovation that's happening. But I would say, yeah, Silicon Valley being its location makes it somewhat a special place, and its reputation definitely gets accelerated there. But in terms of like, say you're actually on Stanford's campus, I mean, our experience I think is definitely unique that you don't really realize until you leave or talk to other your friends. Like you live on campus all 4 years, you know, you're waking up on campus, you're biking from your dorm to class, you're biking from your class to the dining hall. Everything is in campus, and it creates somewhat of a bubble, and sometimes it's not good and you feel trapped, but something about that community aspect definitely makes it feel special. You know, there's nothing greater than walking back from class at sunset time along Lake Log and just enjoying that beautiful like scenery, rather than other students are going to class and then hopping in their car or going to their house off campus. You know, so I would say the social life of like kind of, or the environment of living there definitely increases its like reputation.
Yeah, for sure. I also think it's such a unique place in the sense that if you have a passion, there's a way to explore it through your academics. I think for us, it was kind of entrepreneurship, and we were able to figure out classes that would be interesting and cool to us.
Yeah.
For others, it might have been history. For others, it might be physics. And, you know, you walk into these classes and your professor is someone that is the real deal. Like our public policy professor was a congressman.
But how did it get to that point? How did it get to that point to where these professors want to then be teachers at Stanford, you know? Like we're very fortunate to have that. And it's like, how did it initially get to that point of that being the case? So I think that'd be an interesting question to research.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it has to do with your first point of where it's located and just how much money they've been able to have through all their connections and their alumni network.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's so many things that go into it. It'd be really interesting to dig into that deeper, though.
Yeah. I would say, though, touching about like going back to on our favorite classes and stuff, you know, we did the same major, but public policy was definitely the class that tied everything together for me. You know, for me, my major was science, technology, and society, and definitely a majority of it, I felt lost while doing it. I'm like, all right, I'm taking this history class, I'm taking this anthropology class, I'm taking a couple computer science classes. My brain's all over. But it finally came to a point taking public policy. Or I'm giving credit to public policy, but maybe it was just that time period of my Stanford journey of like where it all kind of like tied together. Yeah. Where I saw like the system of anthropology or stuff that I was learning in anthropology connecting to my computer science classes, as well as my history classes, as well as my design classes. Yeah. And like how it allows you to think systematically, you know? Yeah. And that can obviously happen at any university or institution, but like that happening there was definitely like special for me because it allows me to think differently. Yeah.
I think I agree with you so much. And, you know, we had the same major, and, you know, it's a very interdisciplinary major where we took a lot of different classes from a lot of different departments, and it all tied together. In the end, it felt like you know, I felt better understanding about, history has this impact on technology, and technology has its impact on design, and they all kind of go together somehow. So this is kind of a funny question I just thought of. When someone asks you what you majored in, you tell them your major, you say science, technology, and society, and then they say, what's that? What do you say?
Well, when they ask me my major, before I even respond, I just start laughing. and then they're always like, why are you laughing? And I'm just like, you're about to like, all right, I majored in science, technology, and society. And then they start laughing. They're like, oh, like, yeah, what is that? I'm like, exactly. So, I mean, that's what was so cool about our majors, that we were able, I mean, there was obviously a core and a track that you had to follow, but all it had to do was so much freedom, you know? So we had the ability to choose what we wanted to take, you know? We had some authority over our education, and like, I feel like it was the perfect amount of balance, you know? It wasn't too much of like, oh, you can take whatever you want, therefore you take the easy route. No, like there's a hard core. They guided us in a way of what they wanted us to learn, but we also had the freedom to explore. I would say, like, when someone asks me that, I kind of tie it back into what I said before. Like, it allows me to like dip my toes into many different departments. And therefore, instead of being very narrow-minded and focused on one aspect, I can see many different perspectives, and it allows me to kind of think systematically and see how it all ties into one another.
Yeah, I agree. When someone asks me, I normally am like giggle a little bit, and I say I majored in science, technology, and society, and then I talk about how the courses I took were a lot of anthropology core. I took a lot of product design classes, and they're sprinkled in with a few other departments that kind of opened up my perspective to how everything fits together into one kind of system. Because if you really unpack the major's name, science, technology, and society, it feels like it almost encompasses everything, and I think that's a pretty cool thing.
It kind of, I mean, it's in the name. It's like how they all intersect with each other, how technology affects society. Same with science, I feel like it goes in science, technology, and society. It kind of goes in that order of like, you have the science that happens first, turns into a technology that then affects society, whether in a good or bad manner.
And it's happened over and over again throughout history, and it's crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you are both professional. I was a professional soccer player, and you are a professional soccer player. Let's talk about struggles and things we've learned from being a student athlete, and just kind of how being a professional athlete has, taught you lessons about, more generally life.
Yeah. No, I mean, it definitely, we've been student athletes our whole lives, right? From first grade, technically, if you want to say that, but it definitely gets taken to another level when you go to college. And it's easy to just like go with the emotions of like, all right, you're going to practice, training's hard, you come back from training, you go do homework, and you just go, you repeat, eat, sleep, practice, repeat, go to class as well. And like, for me, I feel like I struggled with like living in the moment. I know that sounds cliche, but like taking it all in of exactly like what I'm doing. Like, hey dude, like you're a freshman, you just won a national championship with your soccer team. Like, if you think about it, like something like that, like it wasn't until my senior year playing at Stanford that I realized how hard it is to truly win a national championship, And so I'm saying, I'm just using that as an example of like being sometimes, you're experiencing it now too, being in the real world of like, all right, just like get on this busy cycle grind to where you're not as present as you want to be. So I would say that's something that I've learned to like try to be a lot more present in terms of like what it is that I'm doing and doing it with a purpose, and enjoying it. The biggest thing that I've learned in the last year, I would say, is you just got to be enjoying what it is that you're doing, and if you're not, assess maybe why you're not, create some changes. But so it taught me a lot of time management, leadership, accountability, the value of cultures. How to stay productive as well. I would say with it all. But,
yeah, I think it's an interesting one because, people always talk about how student athletes, like all they have time for is school and their sport. But for me, I don't think it really ever felt like that for me. I thought I always had time to kind of think about and do other things. But that wasn't because I wasn't busy with the other two. And I think it comes down to my whole life. I was doing school and soccer, and I understood, when I'm doing those things, I'm doing those things, and I need to manage my time correctly. Other thing just I wanted to touch on about, being a student athlete and a professional athlete is I really understand the importance of a team culture. Just being in a lot of different teams growing up. At Stanford's team, the culture, for me, was taken to another level. Everyone was so accountable. Everyone was on the same page. It's a different culture, and it's maybe less lax in some scenarios, but the importance of everyone being on the same page, whether it's in a company's team, whether it's in an athletic team, is so important. And just the value of, being a leader that can understand each individual's perspective and kind of piece them together. That's something that I thought, as a team captain, like it was important for me to kind of understand where everyone was at one time and on an individual level, because, you can't just tell everyone the same thing and expect the same results.
Yeah. I'd say that's a big valuable lesson, is like everyone operates differently. Everyone has a different method of motivation too, so like you have so many different perspectives and beliefs in one whole team, and it's a matter of like, all right, you have one general message, but then how can you apply individual messages to everyone to keep them all like believing in that same goal,
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. So I have a question for you. I'm gonna bounce it back to you. So you mentioned earlier that you're no longer playing professional soccer. You've hung up the boots per se. How has that transition gone for you? You went from Stanford to Loudon to now, pursuing your startup. Like, what has it been hard? Has it been easy? What's on your mind lately? Because it's relatively new, right? You've been out of the professional environment for 2 months.
Yeah, it's been around 2 months, 3 months now. Honestly, when I played soccer, I was at a point where I was totally at peace with letting it go. And that was because the best part of my days wasn't me going to practice anymore. And it was weird, and it took a long time for me to come to grips with that, because for 22 years of my life, my favorite part of the day was going to soccer practice, hanging out with my friends, and working hard to, become the best player I could be, because I always wanted to be a professional. And, in the months that after I left Stanford, it was the situation where the best part of my day, it ended up being working on clear contracts, and I was just so excited about making this idea real that the stuff happening on the field took a back seat, and it caused this weird mental state of like, I should be totally bought into being a soccer player because I'm a professional. Like, this is what I've always wanted to do. But I had this other side of me that was like, I also love this idea. I think it'd be awesome to be an entrepreneur. And I really had to fight that for a while. But I made my decision. And since then, I haven't looked back. Part of it might be because I've been so busy with the startup and just so, diving into it so much. I mean, I work on it every day, and, there's pros and cons to both. Like, being a professional soccer player is great. And I think it's a profession that I will always respect, because it's not easy to stay at that level at all. You have to work hard. You have to, be totally focused every day. But there's definitely pros to not being a professional soccer player anymore. I have more freedom. I have more freedom with my time. I can, if there's my friend is having a wedding on a weekend during the season, I would have never been able to go. But now I'm able to, make a little road trip to be there. But, there's pros and cons.
Can't go to my sister's wedding this Friday. Pretty bad. Because I have a game, but it's whatever.
Pros and cons, dude. Pros and cons.
Yeah, pros and cons.
Yeah.
But it's been good. It's been good overall transition, you'd say?
Yeah, it's been a good transition. I'm still
different, huh?
Yeah, it's different. Like, staying active, it takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of commitment. You gotta wake up and you gotta work out. It's pretty much, if it doesn't happen in the morning for me, it typically doesn't happen. So it's, you gotta I have to rewire my brain, because there's not an activity that I enjoy doing that also gives me physical activity in my life. Now it's like, hey, I don't want to get fat, so I need to exercise. It's been different, but I've enjoyed it. I haven't had any regrets so far.
Nice. That's good. I'm glad to hear, man. We haven't really talked about that before.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to talk about what the future will look like and choose kind of an industry? Or do you want to talk about a crazy business idea that you have?
I mean, I guess I could relate the two. I could tie the two together for you if you want.
Yeah, that'd be class.
So right now, I'm pretty interested in the future of gaming.
Of what?
Of gaming.
Okay.
Of like the gaming industry and what the future of that would be like. And you have a bunch of talks about the metaverse and like everything transitioning online to an extent. I mean, obviously gaming, you're playing online, so it's already online in the first place, but sort of, I guess, the virtual world to an extent, where, I mean, I think the future of gaming is going to get to a point where we're going to be almost like living lives in a makeshift world. Or like you hop on to play Xbox, but you're really almost like hopping on to a different like world and universe, and I've done some research that like, with the power of the new technology of NFTs and everything that's going on, like there's going to be games that are coming out where they're creating whole different economies. I mean, you already see it now with Axie Infinity. And I mean, even like FIFA, it's an example with like Ultimate Team and like having those cards. And I mean, they don't have it set up now, but like basically imagine a game where you go into a virtual world and you set up a bakery to an extent, and you have a farm next to your bakery where you're like harvesting wheat and all that stuff, and then you have your makeshift bakery that's producing goods, and then in the game, like people need to order food from your bakery in order to like progress their character onto the next level. So they're then buying items off you, and you're literally receiving in-game currency from them. And it's like it's crazy concept, but it's actually happening out there. And I think the gaming industry is starting to somewhat maybe realize it. I think it's going to be 8-10 years from now where we see it actually become mainstream. But doing some research of like what is actually in the works of projects is pretty fascinating. And I feel like tying that into like a crazy business idea, I don't know how this is not a thing, but like I know we've talked about this a lot, but the virtual reality like sports bar where like you pop on your Oculus.
That happens so bad.
You pop on your Oculus headset. I'm in Utah. You're in Washington, D.C. Pop in our Oculus headset to the virtual world. Me and you meet up at the VR sports bar. We're in the bar and we're visualizing 30 different screens on each TV in the bar, right? As I'm like looking at you, talking to you, even though we're in two different parts of the world. And then it's like, hey, which game do you want to go to? Oh, do you want to watch the Yankees play the Red Sox? Like, sure. And we like click on that screen, and then boom, me and you are sitting at Fenway, like in real time, because at Fenway there's two cameras set up and these two seats that are portraying the game. Like, so instead of just watching TV, you're at the game, you're watching it virtually, but you're like actually physically next to your person or like your homie.
I mean, it's just an incredible idea. I feel like imagine waking up on a Saturday morning, putting on your headset, you're on the couch, and you're just you go to the VR sports bar, and you invite all your friends with their emails. They pop on their headset, and you're like, hey, there's 5 Premier League games on right now. Which one do you want to watch? You're like, oh, Anfield for sure. Boom.
Yeah.
Live, freaking field side. Maybe it's court side of the NBA.
Think about it. You have one camera set up in one seat. You could have hundreds of thousands of people streaming into that one seat. Therefore, you're piling in 200,000 people into one seat at Anfield.
Why is this not a thing?
Why is that not a thing? Maybe there's, I don't know. But in terms of like for us personally, like we want to watch the Stanford men's soccer team play. So we have the game up on our computer, and then like some other guys are watching the game, so we hop on a group FaceTime.
Yeah,
It's like there has to be a better way of like watching shows, watching events, something virtually with your friends or people that are also watching it.
yeah.
If you want,
What you just said, I want to bring it up. It goes back to public policy, actually. So it's something I learned in public policy, or a concept that I was like, whoa, in public policy, is the non-rivalrous nature of data.
yeah,
That was something that blew my mind when we learned about it. Like data, it's out there and it can be used as much as you want at the same time, infinitely. That's just something that blows my mind. And it's like, if you have one camera there and you can sell a courtside ticket for $30, all you're doing is getting a little space for your camera, and you're just paying, the LA Lakers, like, who knows, $200,000 a year to put a little camera there, and then you sell like 1 million tickets a year to just put on so people can watch it in their
seat. Yeah. No, I agree that the term non-rivalrous is very, very unique, and I think extremely valuable. It's something that if something is non-rivalrous, I think that it adds a lot more value to it. There could be a lot of good, but there also could be a lot of bad. I think because in terms of data, it can be used an infinite amount of times, right? It's not like you use it once and then it's thrown away in the trash. Like, so data can be used an infinite amount of times, but also it can also be interpreted an infinite amount of times, I guess, to an extent. And then that kind of goes back into your topic of like the media not knowing what to believe. I mean, you have a research article, I think Stanford published it, where it's like, we gave 10 research groups the same data and they all came up with 10 different conclusions. Like, what does that mean, And it's just like how you interpret what you're seeing,
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go back to like that's kind of in terms of the future, I believe that will be made. And I don't own an Oculus headset or a VR headset.
I don't either. But if I could do that, I would.
Yeah, I mean, a part of me like doesn't want to own that, right? Like,
yeah,
a part of me like wants to go to Fenway and watch that game in person because that's like the true experience, and that's like,
yeah,
you're next to people, you're having a beer, you're screaming and shouting at good plays, like that's why you go to those events. But then, like, I guess the convenience factor of like still having a great experience, but I'm not able to go to Fenway because I'm in Utah, would still be epic. Part of me is like kind of rebellious against the evolving nature of technology, but I'll tell you one thing, I'm definitely not naive to the fact that it's changing. I think that's the detriment, is when people are naive to the fact that things are going to change or naive to innovation, that's when it's a problem.
So there's a lot of technologies that are like shaping the world right now. Are there a few that you are really excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I would say energy. I would say I'm not maybe as I'm interested in energy. I find it fascinating, but I'm not like able to like, I'm not like so interested into it to where I'm like, all right, I want that to be my career and I want to solve that problem. However, I want it to be one of the top problems that it's solved. I feel like in terms of like shifting away to more sustainable means of energy. So I think sustainability for sure is like something that fascinates me. So any technology that's trying to solve those problems in terms of electric vehicles, going away from fossil fuels. I mean, gosh, there's a massive oil spill off the coast of California by my house, and it's just like, how is this still happening?
Energy is so important. I mean, I think there's a lot of innovation going on within that sector, and I hope people smarter than me are figuring it out. It's something I care a lot about, but like you said, I don't know, besides making sure I recycle and trying to make your personal habits, take shorter showers, like how do you really help with it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because like I say I care about it, but I drive a car that uses gas.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, those constraints, like to society, you can only do so much,
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, you could sell your car and buy a bike and bike everywhere. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like, but how is that? What good is that going to do to you? I obviously struggle with like, oh, well, everyone else is still driving cars. Therefore, I don't have as big of an impact, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a bad mindset to have, like for sure. But there is some truth to it. However, I think technology can solve some of these big problems, you know?
Yeah.
What's another industry or technology field?
I mean, blockchain, smart contracts.
Yeah, but be specific about it in terms of like, what about, like a good problem? Like, what's something that you care about? Could be similar to like energy and that stuff, but like Cardano, I guess in terms of blockchain and crypto, in terms of like in Africa, where it's banking the unbanked, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Being at the summit was really cool. The Cardano summit was really cool because the mission of Cardano is Cardano blockchain. They just want to be a decentralized innovation engine. They want to bank the unbanked. They want to allow creators to create smart contracts that can optimize existing systems. And the people behind the project really have this idea of a future that's attainable, and they've built the technology to achieve it. And, you could talk a lot about how blockchain can change existing systems. I think it's crazy because just as internet changed the way the world works, I am a true believer that blockchain will too. It's going to organize information differently. It's going to create more transparent, transactions of everything. I'm trying to think of another industry that.
Yeah, I guess you can talk about the food industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know our buddy Kay is pretty interested in this in terms of like being able like to grow food at the cellular level instead of like harvesting it. It's like
crazy.
That is like I feel like a crazy technology.
Biomimicry stuff.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Phenomenal stuff.
I mean, yeah. Okay, last thing. I've been chatting for a while. Last thing I want to talk about is we're both the founders of our own companies, the Clear Contacts, you, the Orca Network. Let's talk about some stuff we've struggled with and some stuff we've learned, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot on both. I mean, I've learned a lot just from like day-to-day things in terms of like, I've learned a little bit about marketing. I've learned how to create an email campaign. I've learned how to do this, do that, but I'm trying to think of like overarching themes. I mean, I guess my journey with it, like there's definitely, I co-founded it with our buddy Art of Balut, and me and him have definitely experienced times where we're like super high on it, like we're creating such good progress and we're working on it every single day, and then we hit like a little lull, where it's like, it's like we're not as motivated, or we're still like motivated on it, but like our actions aren't showing that because we've hit like kind of a roadblock to where then progress isn't happening as much, so like me and him have had to learn, and like kind of it's great we're having a co-founder because we're able to be completely honest with each other. If he's slacking, I hold him accountable. If I'm slacking, he holds me accountable. So that relationship is great in terms of like actually having someone there with you and like setting your friendships aside, and it's like, hey, like we're friends, but like this is like business as well, so I would say like learning to be like consistent, holding yourself accountable. And I feel like a big thing that I've learned is like routines. Like it's not so much in terms of Orca related, but for me personally, I feel like when I feel out of slack, unmotivated, not productive, it's when I'm like, don't have a good routine. I'm waking up at 7 one morning, 9 the next, eating at 3 p.m. one day and 11 a.m. the next, so like lately I've been feeling awesome, like mentally, physically, everything, productive with Orca and everything. I have a set like morning routine, and that's like when I would say, wake up at 6:30, do some breathing, take a cold shower, make a cup of mud water, and then I'm out the door. I'm at training, and then just doing that, and then it's like me and Arda meet every day at 11:30 my time for 2 hours, doing some work. Then after that, I do some work on my end, and then I have dinner, and then it's like I have like not my nighttime routine, but that like routines keeps me consistent, and consistency is what leads to greatness, in my opinion.
Yeah. I definitely would like to be in a better routine than I am. I agree with you. I think they help a lot. One thing that I struggle with is sometimes what I like to do is when I wake up, I get a quick workout and I come back and I kind of look at my schedule for the day and what meetings I have and what times I have open. I'm like, okay, what do I do in the times between these meetings? And sometimes it's like there's so much to do that I don't know what to do. And I'm like, should I blast out emails about fundraising? Should I be focused on editing our Figma interface? Like, what am I best at? Like, whose role should this be? Like, should Justin be working on Figma and I should be doing this? And sometimes it gets like that. And I think having clear roles of like what your job is this week. And one thing that helps me a lot is the whiteboard. It's just like, okay, these are the things that need to be done by the end of this week. Like if you get one of these things done today, and then you keep doing one thing a day, then it'll be a good week. So that's kind of, I struggle with that. It's like,
I relate to that. I think prioritization is one of the biggest struggles of, anything, but like, especially when you're starting a company, there's so many things you need to do that it's overwhelming to an extent, but also like, you also don't know what the next thing you should be doing. Like, it's like, oh, I got to do this, Well, which one do I prioritize? Like, which one's going to help me become more successful, Or like, all right, I want to create content for making this video. Well, what type of video should I make? Or like this or that. And it's like, you don't really know the answers to everything. Therefore, pick and choose and do it and commit to it and accomplish it. Yeah. So I feel like that relates to what I said in terms of my struggle. Sometimes those lulls is when like we don't prioritize anything, and it's like there's so much to do that you kind of just like overwhelmed or just don't get lost, So that's a great tip, I would say, in terms of like the whiteboard, laying out those things. Me and Arda just did that this like a couple of days ago of like, hey, laying out our goals that we want to achieve by the end of the quarter, and thinking about those big pieces, those big goals, create smaller goals, and then you break it down into a smaller roadmap to where like clear defined tasks that are made, like a priority list. That's what we call it, obviously. And that's helped us tremendously.
Yeah, I think another thing that I've struggled with is as a non-technical founder, you have this vision in your head, right? You have this idea, it's amazing, but it's like it has to be an actual product. And finding the right development team is tough. And, making sure the developers are on the same page is like how you want the product to be. And honestly, sometimes they hear your idea and they listen to it and they improve on it. But sometimes they do something that you're like, I don't know. But, and honestly, one thing that's really helped us with this is Jira, just the software. Just laying out the roadmap, and then within the tasks, you have tasks and you can detail everything in there. So
we use Jira for a bit. We definitely need to pick up on it. I really like that software, but so Arda's the technical co-founder and he does all the technical side, and he's actually picked up kind of more full stack engineering lately, which has been awesome. But
it's awesome.
I definitely struggle with that too, of like, for me, so I'm non-technical side, so everything business development, building relationships, partnerships, getting more users on board, marketing, etc. And he helps with all that as well, but mainly technical focus. And I find myself so many times like, oh, Arda, like we should add this feature. Arda, we should do this. We should do this. To where then my mind gets off track of like the non-technical side. But I'm also like, I find myself struggling too sometimes of like being unmotivated because I'm like, well, like it would be better if we were able to have these features. Therefore, it's hard for me to be as motivated to like do the other stuff because I'm like, oh, the product isn't as great.
Yeah.
And it has, so like I need to have like, I mean, like it's just Arda, you know, it's, and then we also have one or two others helping, but they're not as committed. They're like barely someone helping. Like it's basically just Arda on the technical side. And in terms of like, he can only do so much. He only has so many hours, and therefore the progress is at the full capacity, and he's going crazy with it. So it's like, onboarding more talent to get more stuff done. Yeah. It's like, I think a big thing is like, how can you progress technical as well as non-technical to then keep like, it's almost create a competition between the technical and the non-technical to then make sure the progress is going crazy, you know? Because both sides are equally as important, you know?
100%. 100%.
And if one side of it is slacking, then the whole thing will fall.
They have to be like yin and yang. They have to balance each other out. Like you can't, if you have a product and no one's pushing it, it's worth nothing. But if you have an idea and there's nothing there, it's worth nothing as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, awesome. I think we've chatted for a while. Some good content. If anyone watching this made it this far, that's awesome.
Blessings to you. There's no way.
Yeah.
Let's say something, and if someone like can repeat it to us, then like we should give them $100 or something.
Yeah. Okay. If someone comments, clear contracts is the future, I'll Venmo you $5.
All right. That's the key word. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm glad I was able to join you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining, Chuck. I'll chat with you soon.
Of course. See you, dude.
What's up, Charlie? Thanks for hopping on the Dink Cast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.